Gibbs, what's an easy 5 wide receiver scheme for a noob? So he's a new player. He's actually from across the pond. Let's take a look at the Dolphins' 5 wide sets and just give him some beginner tips. First thing about 5 wide.
Don't talk about 5 wide. No.
Don't just go to it assuming like, hey, I want to pass the ball. I should probably run 5 wide. Hey, this guy's sacking me. I'm going to go to 5 wide. Madden doesn't really work in that way necessarily. You've got to be a little bit smarter than your average bear with a 5 wide, because if you don't get the ball out, you think you're helping yourself, but you could hurt yourself as a new player.
Yeah, so one of the strengths of 5 wide is obviously you're throwing 5 receivers, you don't have anyone in the backfield, so the general idea of it is you're going to put pressure on the defense, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're going to run a ton of routes, and it's something that they might not be accustomed to facing because, or maybe they don't have the talent to account for 5 receivers, right? I mean, you got to have a lot of DBs and a lot of depth to be able to account for it. I think that there's 2 types of passing concepts that you would want to work off of that can give you success. We just talked about one with gun tight snugs, and that would be one is called a mesh concept. In this case, we're calling it shallow cross, and we'll explain what that means here shortly. But so take a look at this right here. It's called shallow cross. But you can make this same concept. What makes it successful is the mesh, the underneath route to Stills and Foster. So even if I was in this play, or even if I was in stick, right, I could drag Foster, I could drag Stills, and I had the same concept. Mm-hmm. That is one of the best passing concepts that you're going to find in the game, and this is in Madden. Last year's game, the year before, next year, year after, like forever. It's a football concept that's really effective. It's good against man, it's good against zone. The drag route is the single best route in football because it always gets open. It's just a matter of timing when you deliver the ball to the receiver. So in this case, we have shallow cross. We know those routes are effective, but then we want to take a look at some of the other routes on the play. On the far left here, we have Landry on a post. What makes this really effective is if there's a blitzing defense, he gets into a really good spot on the field. Typically, blitzes come from the outside on the edges, right? So if you were to blitz that slot corner or slot safety there prior, what ends up happening is there's a vacant hole behind that blitzing defender. So then Landry becomes your hot read. He becomes the guy you deliver the ball to if there's a blitz off that left edge.
And what you want to think is like, I'm going to snap the ball. I'm going to look real quick at the drags, see where my opponent's guy is, and then I'm going to look at the post.
Yep.
And then if the post isn't open, I'm going to look at the Cameron route. So that's the 3 things you need to do on this specific play. 1, look at the drags. 2, if they're not there or the user's there or you sense pressure, throw to X. And if not, wait and then hit Cameron coming across the middle.
For sure. And the other thing to take a look at here, right? So what a shallow cross, what makes it effective, the concept above it, right? So a mesh concept is just 2 receivers running the same depth, running the same route, just running in front of each other. They're meshing, right? They're doing the same thing. Well, that can be easy for defenses to defend because they only have to defend a certain route at one level of the defense, right? Mm-hmm. So when you run a shallow cross, you're now forcing the defense to say, okay, defend the mesh underneath, but then you also have to defend over the top of it, right? So what ends up happening is, okay, if you're the linebacker here and you break down on the underneath patterns, well, guess who's going to be open? The over-the-top route.
Right.
Okay, so then if you then drop to the over-the-top route, who's going to be open? Okay, well, the underneath routes are going to be open. If you drop there, okay, drop here, deliver it, and right in that same hole. Right. So this is where it becomes really hard to defend, especially when you're in zone coverage. So you now have a hot read to Landry if it's a blitz up the left edge. You have the mesh against man or zone, and then you have the crossing pattern, the deep cross, to give you a read. Okay, are they jumping back to the deep pattern, or are they going up to the short pattern?
So 3 simple things you can do from this one play. Now, you want to add a couple gadget plays to your 5 wide. And there's reasons every year that 5 wide is either better or worse, but a wide receiver screen is always something you want to have in a 5 wide scheme if you're a new player. So if you see these guys backed off, you want to potentially look to go to the wide receiver screen. You want to be patient and you want to hit it. And now this screen particularly doesn't have any other routes, so if it's covered,
you're in trouble.
You're in trouble. So you need to get pretty good with your reads, because if I play cover 2 man and say this guy gets manned up right away, so you don't want to do it when they're up, because then you got to assume that they could be in man coverage. But say you run the screen now, you would have to either throw the ball away or maybe risk a turnover.
Right.
And, there you got lucky, but it's not a way you want to make your living. But you always want to have that in your back pocket.
Right.
Another thing you might do is a QB draw. If you see that I'm possibly dropping like all of my linemen off the line of scrimmage, you get a mobile quarterback in Ultimate Team. Maybe you get a Marcus Mariota, Tyrod Taylor, or RG3 if you're so lucky, you could possibly go with that.
You ready for my diabolical tip with quarterback draws?
Yeah.
Want to see how I run them and I have a lot of success with it?
Yes.
Here it is, right? Quarterback draw. I'm going to do this. This is what I do. I put the controller down.
You let it run it
Go.
manually.
Take over. Yep, that's what I do.
All right, so you could try that. You have
Good.
one other play, like 4 verticals.
Four
Like,
verticals. So those are the two passing concepts I was saying. So you have the shallow cross, which attacks the defense horizontally, and then you have a play called 4 verticals. Well, what does that do? Well, that attacks the defense vertically. So when you start thinking like next level about becoming a better Madden player,
right,
knowing more about football, right? So you want to look at the way you're attacking your opponent is, okay, I have plays that I attack the field horizontally that go sideline to sideline. I don't worry about the depth. I worry about where on the field, like from sideline to sideline, I'm attacking. That's shallow cross. 4 verticals attacks the defense from end zone to end zone. So that puts different types of stress on the defense. So 4 verticals, once your opponent starts clamping down, right? They start clamping down. They're starting getting aggressive. They get out of the cover 4 shells. They start playing cover 2.
Right.
Well, then they're going to start giving more options on 4 verticals.
Right, because look at cover 4. That's going to take away the deep ball, but more so. But then if I go to cover 2 sink because I want more zones underneath because I've just had enough of you hitting me right across this middle over and over and over again, well, that's where you open up 4 verticals downfield. So between the mesh, the 4 verticals, draw up the middle, and then screen to the outside, you've got 4 plays that you can just kind of go between, and like nothing's going to stop all of these plays. So you just got to kind of sense the game, sense your opponent, sense the defense, and then make a couple reads.
For sure, it is. The one other thing to note about 4 verticals, what I love about 4 verticals, you can turn it into its own mesh or shallow cross, however you want to call it, right? So this is 4 verticals. The route to stills, dynamic, great route for beating man-to-man coverage. But a quick way to turn it into like a mesh style shallow cross concept, take your RB receiver, put him on a drag, or you put him on an end. So what ends up happening here is you're going to see we're going to get somewhat of a mesh concept with RB and Y, and then you get an over-the-top pattern that goes to the wide receiver. So that's what makes, like, when we break down and look at 4 verticals, why has it been so good for so many years? Well, it's because as Madden players, what we do is we take a vertical passing concept and we turn it into the best of both worlds. We say, okay, I'm going to have the 2 verticals outside to stretch the defensive view, start clamping down, cover 2 zone. I got a man beater in stills. I got another man beater in the drag, and then I also have a shallow cross that attacks over the top of the mesh underneath. So that's what makes 4 verticals so effective.
And
it's
just
a lot of passing concepts into one when you play Madden.
For reference, since he is a new player, like you don't want necessarily Arian Foster going out on a route. You'd sub in your backup halfback, and you don't want a tight end really on a drag unless it's a really fast tight end. So you would maybe try and sub those guys in or out, or get a speedy tight end like a Ladarius Green, because you would want to just kind of maximize what you can do. But you'd want a mobile quarterback to take advantage, and those are some ways to utilize that 5 wide scheme if you're a new player. All right, keep running through.